All right, here we go, friends. Welcome. Today, I'm going to connect you to the power of silence and solitude. How ironic. My kids are back in school this week, so I am now surrounded by silence and solitude. But I have to say, last week was amazing. I disconnected as much as I could from my business and really just got intentional with spending time with the kids, and it was so good. And I'm going to pull some of the reasons why it was so good in our chat today. So according to the religion Zen Buddhism, enlightenment can only be reached through silence, as teachings can only be understood through contemplation. So I want to take you through today some of the amazing benefits of silence or solitude, because you don't necessarily have to be silent to connect to the power and the benefits that it has for you. Solitude does the same thing, and I'll explain more of that as we go. So let's get right to it. So the benefits of silence or solitude. Number one, it can lower your blood pressure. So I went through and you can come up with all of this information, but there is actually lots of scientific research to support this. And one of the studies I found from 2006 was that a 2-minute period of silence after listening to music or doing a task would significantly decrease your heart rate and blood pressure. So even if included with listening to soft, slow, relaxing music, it doesn't matter, noise of any sort, human generated noise of any sort, having that 2-minute period of silence after whatever noise you have helps bring your heart rate and your blood pressure down. So let's do that. It can improve your concentration and focus. Again, in another study that I found in 2021, those who actually worked in silence experienced the least cognitive load and the lowest stress levels. So when you think about that, a cognitive load, that's all that means is that you've got a lot going on in your mind, right? Cognition is all about your thinking, your processing, using your mind for tasks, right? And so when you are working in silence, it lessens the load that your mind feels because it's less to process. When you think about that, people who have sensory processing disorder, you're taking in all of these things constantly all day. You're taking in everything from all of your 5 senses, and your mind is trying to process it all while it's happening. So you can imagine, especially for anyone who suffers from kind of processing extra crazy amounts of sensory things, that's added a lot of stress to what their mind has to sort through. So focus is almost always lost when a sound reaches around 80 decibels. A silent environment, or one with just a little bit of background noise, will help you concentrate the best. So go back to my first point, even some kind of background noise isn't always beneficial, physiologically for you. Sometimes, for a lot of people, myself included, having some ambient music in the background or the binaural beats actually does help me concentrate, especially when I have external noise in my house. So if I'm trying to work and my kids are home, the earbuds go in. And that to me is a way for me to silence and calm and focus, because it kind of tunes them out, right? So depending on the environment, it may help you to have a little bit of the soft kind of calming music in the background, or noise of some sort, white noise. So another benefit of silence is that obviously it can calm your racing thoughts, but it encourages mindfulness also. So ultimately, mental stillness is a gateway to mindfulness, which has proven benefits for anxiety and depression and all of the connection, all of the rest of it, right? There's so many things that mindfulness is good for. So this allows the thoughts to settle in your body, and it allows your parasympathetic nervous system to actually kind of go down to a functioning as it should sort of state. So when you allow yourself to be in stillness or solitude, it's actually physiologically making a huge difference in how your body is functioning. Hot tip. So it can also stimulate brain growth. This was an article that I found amazingly interesting to read. And it was a study published by the National Library of Medicine. And they found that prolonged exposure to silence can actually cause your brain to produce new cells. So when you are sitting in silence, you're actually growing your brain. So the next time someone accuses you of being lazy, just go I'm growing my brain cells. Thank you. You can piss off now. So what happens is that like, if you, now, I mean, granted, there is a perfect amount of time for this, and I know this is unrealistic for most of us, but if you can be exposed to 2 hours of silence a day, that amount of time is what prompts the cell development in the hippocampus, which is the brain region that's related to your like formation of memory and senses and things like that. So like, that's pretty cool. Sorry, I'm just checking comments. So taking time to daydream might actually improve your productivity, because it's allowing you to increase your brain capacity. How cool is that? Another benefit to sitting in stillness or being in solitude is, I say sitting in stillness, not necessarily just sitting, but like being in stillness. It reduces your cortisol levels. So there was a clinical psychologist that I came across. Her name is Martine Prutney. And she says, and I quote, "An accumulation of unpleasant noise can lead to mental stress and an excess release of cortisol. When it becomes elevated, it can lead to weight gain, feelings of significant overwhelm, difficulty sleeping, and chronic diseases. Sitting in silence or solitude, or being in silence or solitude, helps keep our cortisol levels where they ideally should be." Interesting. So why would you not want to be in a position where you could potentially, you know, be a healthier version of yourself? It stimulates creativity. And this one, my friends, this is one that I want to like give you a personal thing for. So periods of downtime have been actually found to increase productivity, like I stated before, and improve problem solving. And there's this idea that one of the classes that I'm taking, the instructor there talks about the idea of creative loafing. And what that means is that like you intentionally schedule time in your calendar throughout your week where you literally do nothing. I was like, I can get on board with that. But like scheduling in this downtime of like not having these mental tasks to do, or, you know, not focusing on a screen and doing work, or, you know, not responding to emails, or not taking phone calls, not interacting with people, just allowing yourself to be. And this is where, this is where huge breakthroughs came through for me last week. Like I said, I disconnected as much as I could. Now, obviously, I still had clients to serve and things to do. So I was active in my business, just not to the degree that I normally would have been. And I allowed myself this idea of creative loafing. Now, part of it was infused with time with my kids, right? So it wasn't all just downtime, but even disconnecting from my business and disconnecting from that to-do list that is constantly ongoing, because especially as entrepreneurs, we all have a never ending, like ridiculously long to-do list that we feel like we have to get to, because we are the heart and soul of our business. If we're not working, or the idea behind it is that if we're not working, we're not making money, right? So the thought of allowing yourself to just have space to be however you want to be in that moment is sometimes a scary thing, because it's like, well, how am I sitting and doing, how is that going to be productive? Like, I need to be productive if I'm going to make, somebody has to pay my bills, right? Like, I need clients in order to pay my bills. So the idea of stepping back from that is kind of frightening as an entrepreneur. But I can tell you that last week when I stepped back, I had so many downloads of like ideas and, you know, just ways of like making my business better. And the reason I did that is because I wasn't connected directly to it. So when you think about it, like visionary scientists like Albert Einstein or Isaac Newton, like people like that, they almost worked exclusively alone for the majority of their lives. Interesting. Brainstorming with others obviously does have its benefits, don't get me wrong, because like connecting, we're not wired to do things in isolation as humans. So connecting with other humans is great. Connecting with being productive is great, but there's also a huge and important place for this idea of silence and solitude. So plug, the key to how you specifically work best can be found on your human design chart. I'm not sure if you guys know that. So the more you know, the more optimal the life you can create for yourself, which I think is really cool. So if any of you want some information on human design, that is in my wheelhouse. It's something that I can offer you. So let me know. Another benefit is that it improves insomnia. Where are all of my sleep deprived humans at? Give me like a hell yes in the comments, because hell yes, I am with you. And I have to tell you, this is really interesting because, um, on my journey, and I say like, I think a lot of people go through this idea of like a spiritual awakening where you kind of expand your consciousness. Like you begin to realize like, there's probably something more out there than the grind of 9 to 5 and the routine of life of like, hustling and pushing through and like piling all of this stuff on you to make a difference, however that looks in your life, right? So in doing all of that, we often get to this breaking point where it's like, there's got to be something else. This cannot be what life is all about. And when you get to that state, a lot of times you will experience sleeplessness in between the hours of like, well, depending on who you refer to, between 1 and 5 a.m. And so ideally, or I say ideally, a lot of the times, like the magic number is like around 3 o'clock in the morning. You'll wake up sometimes for no reason, and then you have a hard time getting back to sleep. It's because your brain is like experiencing all of these like spiritual downloads or like activations or opportunities for expansion, right? So super interesting that this came about because, like I mentioned previously, silence and periods of calm can stimulate brain growth. It can relieve tension, which can result in a higher sense of well-being and, allowing us to generally feel more relaxed, right? And when this occurs throughout our life, throughout our day, our sleep quality improves. So like a lot of times you'll hear people say, oh, like have a nightly routine, like disconnect from screens, like at least 60 minutes before you're going to bed, and like do things to help you get sleepy, like read a book or have a bath, like allow your body to come down. But like incorporating periods of this calm throughout your day is actually a way better indicator of improving your sleep quality than just having a nightly routine. And like arguably, I would say that even if you don't have a nightly routine, but you do infuse these periods of stillness and solitude throughout your day, you'll still end up sleeping better at night. So try it out, see if it works. This is something that I'm going to be actively working on, because after last week and experiencing what I did, like girls, it is a game changer, let me tell you. So another benefit is that it breeds a deeper level of self-awareness and intuition. So, I mean, who doesn't want a deeper sense of self-trust? Because basically your intuition, following through with that awareness and intuition, is like your prime opportunity to self-reflect, right? And when you take the time to self-reflect, it helps you figure out like if your life is working the way you'd like it to or not. Like I said before, a lot of times we get to this point where we feel like we're having this like breakdown when really it's a breakthrough, right? So once you become aware of the current state of your life and or the changes that you want to make to it, you'll be able to make a conscious improvement in the patterns, the way that you live, the habits that you've created, all of these things, right? So part of the reason silence leads to an increase in your connection to your intuition specifically is because the more you spend time in silence, the more you can hear that self-talk, right? When your mind is going 99% of the time, you're not allowing yourself to talk to yourself, right? And I know last week I connected you to the power of mirror work. That is a beautiful way to allow your self-talk to come through as well. But the silence and solitude is a perfect way for the self-talk, for the voice to get louder, right? And when you can hear that self-talk, a lot of times you have, that inner critic or inner cheerleader. I say that your inner cheerleader is really like, hey, this is me. It's the whisper in the back, right? And that's generally your intuition that's trying to speak to you, right? And so your intuition or these gut feelings are the opportunity for you to trust yourself. It's saying like, you can do it. Go ahead and give it a try, even though you're scared, right? Like whatever it is, whether it's a hobby, whether it's an idea, whether it's a new business venture, whether it's like taking on a new relationship, it doesn't matter what the opportunity is. But oftentimes your intuition is that quiet whisper in the back, right? And so the more you hear or feel those nudges, the more you allow yourself to believe in yourself or trust yourself, right? And then the more you do that, the stronger connection you have with your intuition and the louder that voice gets. So it's a beautiful thing to be able to allow yourself to be guided by your intuition and not be relying solely on external sources for validation and ideas and everything else, right? So another great benefit to being in stillness or solitude is that it increases your patience. I don't know about you, but I would definitely not be sad about having more patience for people and situations in my life. I would love to know that I could like actively do something that allows me to be less triggered throughout my day, right? So learning to enjoy silence actually cultivates, like I said before, calmness and peacefulness. And when we regularly spend time in those kind of states, your tolerance level in like for becoming impatient will likely grow too, right? And so it's this beautiful like pairing, like a fine wine and some cheese together. So yeah, huge benefit for me. Another benefit is that it affects your spirituality. So when you sink into silence, you kind of begin to understand the interconnectedness of everything on earth, no matter what your spiritual tradition is. It doesn't matter if it's a religion or if you're more of like, oh, like I love the universe. Like it doesn't matter. Silence is spiritually powerful across all religions when we think about that, right? And it allows you to both be a part of the world that you're physically in and connect with those more subtle forces that are at work in the universe, right? So it's a beautiful thing. And when you deepen that sense of like really feeling like that you're connected to something bigger or outside of yourself, friends, that's also a game changer. Silence and solitude also helps benefit your healing process. So if you have things that kind of like need your attention, right? A lot of times they'll show up as a trigger, right? Things, people, situations, circumstances will trigger those big emotions inside of you. And when we feel those big emotions, it's usually our body trying to tell us that we're supposed to pay attention to something, right? And sometimes it's things that you didn't even think were an issue. So like that's super fun when it kind of comes out of left field. It's like, hey, surprise, right? So silence gives you a time and a space to work through them and allow some of your conditioning or things to heal. Now, healing is very, whether you want to call it healing or whether you want to call it unlearning, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what your term is, it's all the same kind of thing. So silence is sort of like a river. I really love this analogy that I came across. Once the first layer of mud is cleared away, the stones underneath become uncovered and then can be washed away as well, right? So when we don't allow ourselves to kind of work through that brain fog or work through the mud, so to speak, then we can't see what's underneath it. If we don't allow those emotions to come to the surface, if we don't allow the time and space for them to like be there, tell us what they need to tell us, give us the messages that they're coming to deliver, and like allow it to be worked through, because emotions can't be released until you feel them. And if you're constantly burying emotions because it's like too big, too strong, too much, whatever the two is for you, then it doesn't give them an opportunity to like be released from your energy, right? And pent up emotions over time are not fun. I can tell you that for free. So I found there was a quote that I came across that I absolutely loved. The soul always knows what to do to heal itself. The challenge is to silence the mind. And Carolyn Miss, I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name, said that, but it's so true. It's so true. Not until personally, and same goes for many of the clients I work with, not until I personally began to take time to sit in silence and allow those feelings to come through was I able to process and get to the root of some of the things that were really holding me back in so many areas of my life. Literally, like you think of some of these things as like, well, it can't be that bad. There's so many people that go through trauma. There's so many people that have deadbeat dads. There's so many people that have moms that just don't seem to care. There's so many people that have experienced like big life events that didn't work out for them. Why? Like I'm no different. But there's also so many people who are just so afraid to sit in those emotions that came with that. It's easier to ignore it. It's easier to like stay in that cycle of conditioning and stay in the cycle of like, you know, people pleasing and those like codependency type patterns, because it's what we know. That's where we find our confidence, right? Because we've spent so much of our life living in that space. We're not confident to step out of it. We're not confident that we can get through it. Confidence is a muscle, my friends. I truly believe that. I digress. Another benefit to silence and stillness is connection. Woo, my favorite. Silence and solitude actually increases your empathy and the ability to connect with other people in a meaningful way, right? Because being in silence and solitude can help you appreciate the people in your life more. So this again is direct correlation for me personally from last week. Like my kids led our week. Yes, like I said, I had clients to serve. And yes, I still did, posts on Facebook and Instagram and in groups and all of those things. Like I still did things, but I scheduled out as much as I could. I wasn't as present online in commenting and following up with people because I just allowed it to be, because my most important focus last week was the connection that I was making with my kids and being present in that moment with them. And when you can really connect with people, it allows you to see what kind of relationship you have with them. It really does. A lot of times we need to be in a position where we can be in silence with someone, where there is nothing distracting us. Think of the last time you went on a date with your husband or your spouse. Like, did you have your phones out at the table? When you sit at home and you're like interacting with each other, do you intentionally connect and talk? Or are you just in the same space? Because there's a huge difference. There's a huge difference between sharing space with someone and actually connecting with them, right? And same goes for our kids. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I'm not a perfect parent. There are lots of times where like I'll, like give my kids coloring pages to do. Like, here, let's color a picture together. And while they're coloring, I pull my phone out and I'm doing things for work. I'm not fully present with them. And they can feel it, and you can feel it too. So even if you here's another quote that I really loved. Even if you clear out the distractions and create space for quiet, you'll have to get comfortable with yourself, with being alone with your thoughts, failures, hopes, dreams, wounds, and longings. For some of us, quiet can be the scariest place to go. And how true is that? That was by Rebecca Lyons. So how do we get past this? So glad you asked. There's obviously, like anything else, there are tons of different ways then that you can, infuse things into your life. So I want to give you a quick and dirty few ways of how you can turn down the noise in your life and increase your opportunity for silence or solitude. Okay. And no, you don't necessarily have to meditate. That's one way, but you don't have to do it. It is on my list because some people really enjoy that. But things like simple, make your vehicle a noise-free zone. Easier said than done with kids. I get it. But even if you're by yourself, the odd time that you are able to go out in your vehicle by yourself, if you do own some children, make it a noise-free zone. Turn the radio off and just be in stillness and silence with yourself while you're going about your day. Okay. Reduce background noise when you can. So like, for example, today at home, while I'm at work, even though I work at home, I'm not going to have any music on. I'm not going to engage in any kind of background noise where I normally would. I'm going to instead sit and be present with myself in silence and thoughts. Good morning, Melissa. I'm glad you're here. So remove some of that background noise where you can. Or like I said earlier, if you have a generally noisy environment, then maybe putting the earbuds in your ears and infusing yourself with that really soft ambient noise, just enough to like block out some of the other extraneous noise. Do that. Now, my next tip is to remove your earbuds. But that would be for a situation like I'm in right now, where I don't have any other noise around me. I don't need to have earbuds directly in my ears. I can take it out and I can just enjoy the silence, right? And be with my thoughts, not have something else directly infusing itself into my eardrum. Start your day before the rest of the house wakes up. If you're a morning person, if you are not, hello, my name is Catherine. I like to work till 3 a.m. and like sleep in. Just lay in bed for 5 minutes before you start your day. That can be your baby step. So if you're not the type of person that can get up at like 4, 5, 6 a.m., whatever, I don't know what time your household generally starts its day, but if you're not that person, then like just allow yourself to like lay in your bed, shut your alarm off, do not scroll on your phone, put it back on your nightstand, and lay for 5 minutes. If you're scared you're going to fall asleep, turn a timer back on for 5 minutes and allow yourself the opportunity for that 5 minutes to just be in quiet with your mind, your thoughts, how to tune into your body. How do you feel in this moment when you first kind of are coming into that state of awakeness, right? Super easy way to do it. Drink your morning coffee without distractions. I did this morning. I do still have some coffee left because I wanted to get ready for my day, but I came this morning and I just sat. I sat on the floor with my dog and we had a cuddle, and I didn't have noise. I didn't scroll my phone. I didn't do the other things. I intentionally set aside that time to just be, mindfully taste what was going down my throat, listen to the noise of the, connect with the sounds around me. I say noise, but like there's traffic noise outside of my house. I could hear birds outside of my house. I can hear my dog licking his paws because he has allergies, because he's a dud. Like, you know what I mean? Like mindfully connecting with all of my senses, right? That's a beautiful way to just be in silence and take everything in. Now, I will say one thing that I absolutely love, because I said it doesn't necessarily have to be silence from noise. It's human noise. That's the thing. Okay. So like taking a walk in nature without your music, without those earbuds. Okay. Listen to the sounds around you, like I just described, because according to many sources that I came across, it's not natural sounds that are distracting, that increase that cognitive load, that raise our blood pressure. It's not the natural sounds. It's the human generated sounds that create that strain, I'll say. Okay. So take a walk in nature. If you don't like to be sitting still or meditating or anything like that, then get outside, smell the air, use your senses and connect with it. You can meditate. So I am throwing that in here for those of you that love it, but I would challenge you to meditate without it being a guided meditation and without any kind of background music or sound or anything like that. Okay. But the most important thing, friends, start small. Okay. Baby steps lead to big changes overall. So I'm going to leave you with that. For any of you that absolutely would love to connect deeper to your soul, deeper to spirit, I have a new program that is launching and I am so excited about it. I did put a post up last night on Facebook. For any of you that maybe were not connected on Facebook, holy moly, guys, this is going to be amazing. It's the very first time I'm running this program. This was a download that I've allowed to come in slowly over time when I sit in silence. It's amazing what your guides will send your way. And so this is going to be a beautiful program. And if you would like to get into the details of it, just let me know. I do have sort of, I guess, a waiting list, for lack of a better way to say it, so that I can have everybody's contact information all in the same place, so that I'm hoping by the end of this week, I'll have all the details ironed out. That's going to be my focus on my downtime when I'm not actively working with clients or creatively loafing. I'm going to be sitting with my own business guides and working through the details of this program. So I would absolutely love to be a part of your journey and offer you some teaching and training in that. So let me know if you're interested. Otherwise, I will leave you today with this power of silence and solitude. And I challenge you to see where in this week you can infuse some silence and solitude for yourself. So I hope you all have the most beautiful week, and I will catch you again soon. Love you guys.